Greetings, friend of karmic affinity. Try to visualize this moment with me. It is a quiet, early morning. You choose a peaceful corner to sit, gently closing your eyes with the desire to find a bit of relaxation for your soul. Yet, ironically, as soon as you sit down, instead of the expected peace, a storm of thoughts rushes in. Worries about work, a list of things to buy for dinner, or even a vague remorse from the past. They all scream, competing for your attention. In that moment, we often feel helpless, tired, and blame ourselves. Why can't I focus? Why is my mind so terrible? But my dear friend, please breathe softly and relax your shoulders. We are carrying a huge misunderstanding. We believe that meditation, or calming the mind, is synonymous with forcing the brain to power off, to become completely empty like a stone. But the truth is, as long as we are alive, the mind will still produce thoughts as naturally as the heart beats and the lungs breathe. Your attempt to steel yourself and command, "Stop thinking," is, in fact, an act where the command itself becomes the noisiest and most stressful thought. So, if it is not about suppression or escape, how do we find serenity right in the middle of this flood of consciousness? Properly. Understanding. A quiet mind. My dear friend, the first and most important thing we need to deeply understand is that a clear mind absolutely does not mean an empty or dead mind. Many of us mistakenly believe that the goal of meditation is to erase all thoughts, turning the mind into a pristine blank sheet of paper. But in reality, that is a hopeless battle against nature. The mind functions to produce thoughts, just as eyes are for seeing and ears are for hearing. If you try to use your will to command it to stop, you are unintentionally creating a stressful paradox. Contemplate this saying carefully. The effort to want to stop a thought is, in itself, a thought. That is the thought named, "I don't want to think anymore." And so, instead of making the mind quiet, you layer a new wave of resistance upon the lake of consciousness. The more you struggle, the murkier the water becomes. The more you try to control, the noisier and more chaotic the mind gets. Therefore, the first step to freedom is not suppression or escape, but properly understanding this natural essence to stop confronting and waging war against yourself. The art of observing the mind, the awakened gardener. Instead of trying to build a dam to block the river or violently extinguish the noises in your head, the Buddha taught us a path of wisdom that is much gentler. The practice of contemplation of the mind, or Cittanupassana. The core secret here does not lie in controlling the content of the thoughts, but resides entirely in your attitude toward their appearance. Imagine you are sitting on the bank of a river of consciousness that is flowing continuously. Thoughts, whether wholesome or unwholesome, whether peaceful or anxious, are like leaves and dry branches floating on that water. Your task is not to jump into the water to retrieve the leaves, nor to strain yourself to block the flow. Your sole and sacred task is to sit still on the bank, keeping your eyes clear to recognize what is passing before you. When intense anger flares up because of a displeasing word, instead of being swept away by it to react, or tormenting yourself over why you are so resentful, you only need to step back and silently note, "Ah, anger is present in me." When a craving or desire arises, you also do not need to panic or deny it. Simply name it. Greed is present. You need to understand deeply that the problem never lies in having bad or good thoughts, as that is a natural biological reaction of the brain. The real problem only arises when you do not know what you are thinking, allowing those streams of thought to drag you along like a sleepwalker in broad daylight. causing you to say and do things that bring regret. To help you better visualize the miraculous, transformative power of this pure observation, consider your mind as a hyperactive and naughty child. Have you noticed that when a child plays alone in a room without adult supervision, they tend to be disruptive, rummage through things, and mess everything up? But if the parents simply open the door, walk in, sit in a corner, and quietly observe with a kind gaze, without scolding or threatening, that child will automatically become well-behaved again. They will self-adjust their behavior and play in a more orderly fashion, simply because they are conscious of being seen. Your mind operates exactly like that child. Lacking the light of awareness, it will run wildly from the past to the future and cause chaos. But when you light the lamp of mindfulness, the mere presence of knowing will cause wandering thoughts to automatically settle, becoming more compliant and orderly than ever. That is the miracle of observation. You do not need the effort of suppression. You only need to be present and see. And every storm in the heart will automatically enter its orbit of peace. Seeing through the arising and passing of thoughts. Once you have shifted to the mode of a silent observer, you will begin to recognize a very subtle law of the consciousness. That is, all thoughts, whether intense anxiety or fleeting joy, are merely temporary phenomena that arise and pass away. Imagine those streams of thought are like rain bubbles appearing on the surface of a lake. They emerge, exist for a brief moment, then burst and disappear into a void. The task of meditation is simply to fully recognize that process. When a thought arises, gently note that it is being born. When it vanishes, note that it is passing away. You do not need to do anything more. Do not try to hold on to good thoughts, and do not rush to chase away bad ones. When you see through that fragile and transient nature, your mind will automatically let go of the habit of clinging. It will no longer blindly trust or be swept away by those illusions. As a result, stillness will come naturally, as softly as water returning to a flat state after the rain, without any straining effort from you. That is the serenity of true knowing. 5 steps to transform negative thoughts. My dear friend, now that you are ready to face the garden of the mind, I offer you 5 golden keys to open 5 doors of liberation from afflictive thoughts. This is a sequential roadmap, going from gentle to strong, helping you flexibly adapt to every state of the mind. But please remember, the prerequisite for using this toolkit is awareness. You must realize you are being swept away before you can begin to stop. The first step is replacing with a wholesome idea. Imagine your mind is like a nail driven tightly into a wall. If that nail is a negative, rusty, and ugly thought, you cannot just stand there and hope it falls out on its own. The most effective way is to take a new, shiny, and beautiful nail, representing a wholesome thought, place it exactly on that spot, and drive it in hard to push the old nail out. In life, when anger rises because someone hurt you, do not let the mind slide down a revenge script. Immediately, proactively recall a good deed that person once did for you, or think of a peaceful memory between the two of you. If you cannot find a good point in them, direct the mind toward a virtuous deed you performed yourself, or think of a teacher you respect. This replacement is not avoidance, but the art of changing channels for the mind. You proactively light a candle so the darkness automatically recedes. When the peace of a wholesome idea appears, the darkness of resentment will have no place to stand. If the first step is not strong enough and negative thoughts still cling to you, move to the second step, contemplating the danger. At this point, you need to look directly at that thought and be honest with yourself about the price to pay. Ask yourself, if I continue to nurture this anger or immerse myself in this desire, what will be the consequence? The Buddha compared holding on to evil thoughts to a person dressed beautifully and cleanly, but hanging the carcass of a dead snake around their neck. No matter how glamorous the exterior, the stench and horror of the corpse will ruin everything. Anger or greed are the same. They are toxins, silently destroying your peace, health, and precious relationships. When you see through the danger and the immeasurable harm these thoughts bring to yourself and others, a healthy sense of fear will arise. It is the shudder of horror before that poison that will make your mind automatically let go of bad thoughts, like the reflex of pulling your hand back immediately when touching hot coals. However, there are times when thoughts become stubborn and hardened. Even knowing it is harmful, the mind refuses to let go. At this point, use the third step, non-attention and ignoring. Treat those delusions the way you would treat a crying child throwing a tantrum for a gift. If you soothe, explain, or scold more, the child will cry louder to get attention. The best way is to ignore it, turn your face away, and continue your work with composure. In meditation, this means you drain the energy source nourishing the thought. Close your eyes and imagine that thought is just a passing cloud or a stranger walking by. You do not look after them, do not greet them, and do not invite them in. You return to the breath, to the work in progress, or to a sutra being chanted. When starved of attention, those thoughts will gradually get exhausted, become weak, and automatically vanish into thin air. If the battle is not yet over, we move to the fourth step, which is extremely subtle and deep, calming the mental formations. Imagine a person running for their life under the scorching sun. Suddenly he asks himself why he must run so miserably. So he slows down. Then he stops. And finally, he sits down under a shady tree to rest. For streams of thought that are racing along, use gentleness to soften them. Observe where that thought comes from. Does it come from a fear of being hurt or an unmet need to be loved? Instead of judging, send it the energy of compassion and soothing. Tell your mind, I know you are worried. It's okay. Just breathe. Just relax. When you loosen the tension of the body and mind, the speed of the thought stream will slow down. Aggression will give way to compliance, and the inner storm will gradually settle into gentle ripples. And finally, if all four steps above fail, and you are at risk of being submerged by negative thoughts or driven to do evil, the Buddha gives us the final weapon in the fifth step, using strength to subdue. This is a strong measure, like a wrestler using muscle power to crush a weaker opponent. Clench your teeth, press your tongue against the roof of the mouth, and use your strongest will to command the mind to stop immediately. You concentrate the entire energy of awareness to block that stream of thought, giving it no chance to continue. However, I must give you a sincere warning at this step. This is the method of suppression through mindfulness, and it should only be used as a final urgent solution when the gentler methods are ineffective. If you abuse it frequently without wisdom, it can cause inhibition and reverse tension for the inner self. Use it carefully, like a high-dose antibiotic, used only to break the crisis, not for daily nourishment. These 5 steps are an invaluable treasure that, if skillfully applied, will make you the true master of your house of consciousness, no longer disturbed by uninvited guests of your inherent peace. Closing today's journey, I want to tell you sincerely, please do not expect instant miracle changes. Transforming the deep-seated habits of the consciousness is a persistent journey that requires patience and great love for oneself. Like a diligent gardener watering every day even when flowers haven't bloomed, stay persistent in practicing these 5 steps in all everyday circumstances. Repetition is the secret to creating internal strength. Gradually, negative reactions will weaken to let composure take the throne. When the skill of observation becomes masterfully fluent, you will receive the most worthy reward, a soul that is completely free, leisurely, and no longer bound by any burden of delusion. If the insights shared in this video brought you a bit of light or relief, please help me spread this wholesome energy further. Your like is a great mental encouragement. Sharing this with family and friends is how you sow seeds of peace into their lives. Don't forget to click the subscribe button so we can continue to accompany and rely on each other on the path back to balance and awakening. May your mind always be at peace and free. Goodbye, and see you in the next videos.